Well, the quiet moments in life are often the best. In many ways, we live for the quiet moments, trying to get through the many day-to-day activities we are required to do, just so that we can have a few moments of peace at the end of the day. Those quiet moments are often what refuel us, what keep us well rested, and what help us to be renewed. How many of you will sit among loved ones during the next couple of days, no doubt experiencing some holiday chaos, but also enjoying the quiet serenity of the Christmas season? Amen. How many of you, amen, say the new parents. How many of you will be next to a fireplace or reading a new book or watching a Big Ten bowl game, perhaps with some Christmas snacks next to you, perhaps with a drink and some good company, after having opened presents, explored the interiors of stockings, shared in whichever meals you have shared, and maybe talked on the phone with anyone who can't be there this year? How many of you find some relief in the still moments during today's service? After you have all gotten dressed up, prepared for the snow and the cold outside, brushed off and warmed up your cars, and made it through the storm to greet everyone here in the church, how many of you are glad to have a quiet moment where it is just all of us together, and our children too? We hear the music, we light the candles, we read the scriptures, and we have a moment of quiet. How many of you love the quiet moments when you find yourselves outdoors? Perhaps you're taking your dog for a walk during the early morning or late at night. Maybe you're running or walking or jogging. Maybe you're looking out at the snow as it falls softly on the ground, muffling all the sounds from around the neighborhood. Or perhaps you're outdoors during another season. Perhaps it's not winter at all. How many of you love the quiet sounds of fall? That is, the moments when you're out raking leaves and you can hear nothing other than the gentle crunching noise they make. How many of you love the quiet moments of spring, not silent perhaps, but quiet, with the arrival of new flowers and the gentle chatter of birds? Perhaps you love the quiet that occurs when you can hear the rain falling outside and nothing else. How many of you love the quiet moments during summer when you're outside on a beach enjoying the warm sand? That sounds pretty good tonight, doesn't it? Or perhaps you love the quiet sound of the water while you're out on the lake, sailing or paddleboarding or swimming or what have you. Here's another one. How many of you love, or can imagine, the quiet moments spent with a child in your arms? It could be your child or another's. It could be anything for which you spend time caring. Perhaps it is a pet or a plant or a project or a home. But how many of you love the quiet moments with that child or that responsibility or that pastime? For those of us who have experienced childbirth and parenting, how many of you remember the quiet moments that occurred afterward? When all the labor and delivery was done, right? When all the tests had been run, the debriefing completed, and the crying stops for a moment. How many of you experienced this private moment with your newborn child? Perhaps in the middle of the night when no one else was around. How many of you felt that in that moment you had the best secret in the world to tell, that belonged only to you and which could never be taken away? How many of you like to imagine the quiet moments that occurred in a stable just over 2,000 years ago? How many like to imagine the early hours of the morning or the late hours of night during which the Christ child was welcomed into the world? How many of us wish we could have been there to witness the story of the Nativity, to see what it was like when these innocent little people gathered together in this humble little stable behind this quiet little inn? Or perhaps there were not many quiet moments at all. Perhaps the inn was really noisy because it was so full. Perhaps the sheep and the donkeys and the camels and whatever other animal figurines we imagine were making noise all night long. Perhaps Mary and Joseph's birth experience was more similar to our own than we often imagine. Perhaps there was quite a bit of yelling and running back and forth and chaos. Perhaps Mary handled childbirth as well as most women do, meaning, of course, that she confronted the greatest challenge of her life with strength and grace, but also with exhaustion and pain. How many of us have had a private, quiet moment with Christ or with God, about which we have told no one, but which will never leave us again? How many of us love the private experience of faith? We love the shared experience too, of course. But the simple confidence we get from Christ, the intimate love we receive from God, how many of us savor and look forward to those moments? Personally, I love to sometimes pray in here when the sanctuary is empty. Maybe when the building is empty, when the lights are off. It's always beautiful and very relaxing and fulfilling. As we go forth from this place tonight into our various Christmas parties and dinners and presents and celebrations and hopefully bedtimes, I hope we will all still take time to find those quiet moments. One of my favorite ones occurs at the end of this service, when we're all holding our candles up together. Take a quiet moment to thank God, to pray, to reflect on the meaning of Christ in your lives, and look forward to the many, though perhaps few and far between, moments you may have with God in the future. Thanks be to God for that, and amen.